Hello friends, welcome to lecture number 31. Today we will start with our module number 7th. Module 7 is Service Quality Management or SQM in tourism. In this lecture, we will study about the introduction of SQM in tourism. So let us first of all try to understand what is the meaning of SQM. As the word itself is suggesting, service quality management, how to manage the quality of the service being provided to the tourist. Now, we all know that if in case we are purchasing any good, we get a word QC written over there. Okay, what is the meaning of QC? Quality control or quality check. Okay, means standardization of the product has been checked. But in case of services, we have studied that standardization of services is simply not possible. So, in that condition, maintaining the quality of service is a little difficult task, and it requires a very thorough planning and its implementation. And for its implementation, training of human resource or the training of service providers, employees are very important. Okay? So, service quality is a matter of perception, because services and quality, these are very vague words. These are very subject to the notion of that particular person himself. Okay. So, when we talk about service quality, it is a matter of perception. What one person may be finding a very good quality, next person may be finding average quality, third may be finding excellent, and fourth may be finding not up to the mark. So, that way service quality is a matter of perception, how your tourist perceive the quality of that service, that becomes service quality. So, not a standardized one, not a uniform one, but how your tourist is actually perceiving will become the standard of that particular service delivery. Okay. Now, there are two main variables which define a service quality. First is customer expectations and next is service standard. What is customer expectation? What does your customer expect? Okay. Now, when we talk about, let us say, the traveler who is traveling in a business class in any flight, on any flight, that person has paid more. So, he is expecting that he will be getting a menu while on board, and as per his choice, the food will be provided to him, the meal will be provided to him. While when we talk about an economy class customer, if that customer is getting his pre-booked meal, he is not making any change at the last moment, whatever the menu which was available, he has chosen from that, and then he is getting that served on board. For him, it is absolutely fine. So, there are two different expectations. One expectation wherein a tourist is expecting to get a menu of maybe 5 to 7 types of dishes, and out of which he can select as per his choice and requirement at that time. And there is another one who might have booked a ticket, let us say 2 months back, and during that time itself he has booked a meal and he has got a meal and is absolutely fine with this. And maybe there is third customer who has not booked the meal at all and is not expecting any menu also. And he is also absolutely fine with this, because it was his choice not to book a meal. So, that way if we actually see, there are different customer expectations. All three of them are traveling on the same flight, okay, but their expectations are entirely different. Now, next is service standard. Service standard is actually what the customer has perceived that the quality of service has been delivered to him. So, since the expectations are different, okay, so it means that they are going to perceive this service standard also differently. So, it clearly means that customers do not just expect different services, they also evaluate or perceive the services or the service which has been provided to them differently. And let me tell you like why these two are important. Parshuraman, Zeithaml and Leonard, they called this gap between these two indicators as service quality. So, whatever service standard, whatever customer expectations were, whatever the quality of services which have been provided to them, a gap between these two, the difference between these two is called service quality, or it is an indicator of service quality. Now, since here expectations are different and perception of service quality is also different, I am not saying not service quality, sorry, service standard. So, I am not saying that the way the service was delivered, I am saying how the tourist has perceived. So, since expectations were different and perception of service standard is also different, so that is why the way in which these tourists are going to perceive this service quality will also be different. So, service quality is a matter of perception. I told you in the starting itself that one person may perceive it to be very good, another one exceptional, third may be very average. Why? Because their expectations were different. They have perceived the service which was delivered to them also differently. Now, it is a gap between these two. So, obviously, in that condition, the way in which they are going to perceive the quality of the service will also be different. So, both of them are traveling in the same flight, okay? Both of them are getting the similar kind of service or service standard delivered, but how they have perceived the quality of this service are different for both of them or all three of them. So, this is the meaning of service quality, which is highly perceptual in nature, depending on two variables, customer expectation and service standard. Since customer expectation are different and the way in which tourists perceive service standard are also different, that is why the gap between these two, which is an indicator of service quality, will be different. So, let us move further. Now, I told you about these two variables. First was customer expectation, second was service standard. We will discuss about these two things in detail now. First is customer expectations. Now, customer expectations are varied. They are not the same. In fact, one person or one tourist may have different perception at different point of time in the same tour itself. So, these are varied and they directly affect the satisfaction. Okay. So, these assessment of customer expectation is very important because they are not the same, point number 1. Point number 2, not the same for the same person different at different times, and point number 3, for two different person these will be different. So, an assessment of these are very important because they are directly affecting the satisfaction level of the tourist. It is not about satisfied or not satisfied, it is about on this continuum of satisfaction, where is your customer standing. Okay. Now, understanding tourist expectation is must, this I have already told you. Now, Zeithaml, Berry and Parshuraman in 1993, they categorized all the expectations into 3 categories. First was predicted, second was adequate, third was desired. Okay. This was one classification. Another classification was given by Levison in 1997. They also categorized all the customer expectations into 3 categories, but they used a very different nomenclature, and their nomenclature was essential, expected and optional. So, if you look at it, predicted and essential, something which is essential, I am doing a comparison between these two classifications. Okay. So, as per Levison, something which is essential is only that thing which can a tourist expect. Okay. So, expected. So, what is essential in case of Levison will become predicted in case of Zeithaml, Berry and Parshuraman scale. Okay. I am doing a comparison between these two nomenclatures now. What is essential as per Levison is something which is core, and since it is core, so this is something which can be predicted as per Berry and Parshuraman. Okay. So, what is essential here becomes predicted there. So, they might have given 2 different names, but if you look at them, what kind of services can be expected are going to be more or less the same. Now, next is expected. What Levison said expected is what Zeithaml, Berry and Parshuraman said adequate. Why? Because expected is something which which is beyond essential. This must be there kind of a thing, and here educate means sufficiently delivered. So that way expected and educate are also the same thing, two of these, just the two different names. And third is optional or desired. So optional is something, if these are there, absolutely fine, and desired, if desired things are there which are beyond the expectation, it's absolutely fine. So that way if you see, customer expectations were divided by Zeithaml, Berry and Parsuramman in 1993 and Levinson in 1997 differently, but more or less their basis for classification was the same. Okay. Now, we will understand these different types of customer expectations one by one. First is essential. So, what are essential? Essential are those core services, those core facilities, those must be a part of the product, in absence of which actually the delivery of the service will not be fulfilled. So, fundamental requirements to continue services business. So, if the service business wants to continue and wants to continue delivering the services, in that condition these elements of service are core, are essential. So, like when we talk about a reasonable pace of tour, your tour cannot go starting up 4 o'clock in the morning and getting ready by 6 and then going out at 6:30 after having a breakfast, and then 6:30 to 8:30 in the night for 14 hours, and then coming back just have a quick dinner by 9 p.m. and then you go back to sleep and then you get up at 4 o'clock. No, the pace of this tour, we need to understand here that the pace of this tour is not at all comfortable, not at all something which is which will be appreciated by the tourist. So, essential means that part of a service which has to be there. So, pace has to be there, considering that the people who have become tourists now for the time being are actually not robots, they are human beings, okay, and they are here to enjoy their time. Okay. So, please do not consider them to be somebody who can walk or maybe who can go on a tour for 14 hours, 15 hours or 16 hours in desperation to take them to the maximum number of places. So, that is what is essential. Next is acknowledging complaints. Now, most of the time you must be thinking, why complaint at this point of time? You have to understand that complaint is about a service which has not been delivered. So, till the time the company is not acknowledging means accepting as that complaint has happened due to some cause and that is completely justified. Okay. So, acknowledgement of complaint is very important. The moment we acknowledge the complaint means we accept that lacuna in the delivery of service because of which this complaint has happened, and then only service provider will be able to eliminate it from the future delivery of services. Now, check-in process. Can a guest actually avail accommodation in a hotel without a check-in process? And if it is there, would you like to go and stay in that hotel as a guest? Would you find that hotel to be safe enough? No. So, that is why check-in process is not about accommodation, but it is one such facility in the absence of which simply accommodation facility cannot be provided by any accommodation provider. Okay. Now, providing adequate information. Yes, you need to tell to the tourist where are they going, what is the time difference, what kind of a weather, what kind of do's and don'ts, what kind of a culture, what they can enjoy, what they need to know before they go over there. Maybe there is some historical place which is very famous. So, instead of giving them simple a commentary over there, why not tell them about it and just tell them to come prepared after doing little bit of reading, so that they can actually not just listen to what this narration which will happen over there, but to understand the significance of that particular place. So, providing this adequate information, all these things become a part of essential service, and essential service in terms of Zeithaml, Berry and Parsuramman is predicted. So, this is something which your tourist is already predicting. So, just listen to me very carefully now. Since your tourist is already predicting, it means this is the minimum which you need to do as a service provider. By bypassing these services, service delivery was not done at all. So, this is like must, core of a product, okay, core of a service. Okay. Now, next is expected. So, when we talk about expected, now guest assumes that travel management company should provide in order so that services are adequate. First was core, must, okay, but were they sufficient? Were they adequate? And that is what comes from the expected. Okay. So, like beyond the essential and to be competitive. So, it is not just about providing the core, but going beyond it so that the company can remain relevant and competitive in the market. Okay. So, like payment options. When we talk about payment options, not just DD, not just check, not just cash, not just one or two debit cards or not just one or two credit cards, but a different kind of options, Paytm, PIM, UPI, internet banking, and then cash, DD are obviously they are these traditional methods. So, all these payment options have to be there, and the tourist must also be acquainted by these TMCs that what kind of payment options will be available there, once they are there at the destination, and also what will be the service charges if they are going to use that particular mode of payment. So, all this information is something which is the duty of the TMC employee to tell to the customer. Okay. Now, providing employment to locals, this is also something which is very prominent nowadays. Every a tour management company should try to employ as many locals as they can, because these locals are good source of information. And point number 2, this gives a very localized feeling to the to the tourist when they talk in the dialect of that place, when they talk about the history of that place. So, in that condition what happens, the kind of knowledge which they have, and when they impart that knowledge with the tourist, that becomes very entertaining for the tourist, not in the form of providing information in a informal classroom kind of a thing. No, it is also about entertainment in a very very beautifully in the form of a story, and that is what is need of the hour, and that is only possible when you have employed a local people. You talk about your waiter, you talk about your porter, you talk about your driver. When these people talk about I have been a native of this place and my grandparents were here, and this is what we used to do, and that is how this place has progressed, and these are the changes which have come up with time, and this is what we are planning for future. So, it is like they just do not tell one point which is that concurrent time, they talk about an entire timeline and the changes which have come up. So, that becomes very entertaining and goes beyond providing information to the tourists. So, they must try to employ local people, as well as when they provide employment to the local people, they generate a positivity among the host community also, as a result of which the interaction between the host community and the the tourist becomes very conducive. Okay. Now, expected services may, yes, this is a very important point, that expected services may soon become essential as guests become more demanding. So, guest was expecting something, and guest might have gone and stayed in couple of hotels and might have traveled with other travel management company, or maybe on tours with this company itself. So, what they were expecting earlier, they become used to of it. The moment they become used to of it, now they take that as essential. So, they have actually upgraded the essential, the expected to essential, and this is what company needs to understand, and this is what ministry also needs to understand, that while giving classification of hotels, while providing different kind of certification to travel management companies, the ministry as well as FHRAI and other bodies, they must take care of this thing, that tourists are also upgrading, because tourists are getting new facilities at their home, their living standard is increasing in general when we talk about around the world. So, that way if we see, they are becoming used to of those kind of services, and those services which they were expecting earlier has now become essential. So, that is what company needs to understand here, that with different with the passage of time, what is expected today will become essential tomorrow. So, they need to explore for more expected services, so that they can still provide a better experience or a higher level of satisfaction to their tourist. Okay. Now, third is optional or desired. So, essential is done, expected is done. Now, there is something which your tourist, even he might be knowing or not knowing, but he might be just having, yeah, it's okay, if I can get it, there will be nothing better than this, that kind of a thing. So, it is an optional thing, it is like frills, and this is what, from where actually the value in the product has been added. Your product becomes unique, okay? You get a competitive edge. Okay, it might become even your USP, because of which tourists start purchasing your product. It gives a differentiation. Okay, it makes your product different. So, it provides a differentiation to the product, and that is what company needs to be very clear about, that it is not about core or maybe expected. No, it has to be beyond that, beyond what your customers have been expected is what is going to work for you in the long run. And you should not hesitate, you as a company or service provider must not hesitate in providing optional, because customer was not anyways expecting it. So, even if while delivering this kind of a service, if the TMC or the employee of TMC does some kind of error, the tourist generally ignore that error, okay? Because tourist simply says that we were not expecting, so it is absolutely fine. So, now we will go to our next topic, which is service standard. Service standard means the standard of service which has been delivered to the customer. We are not talking about quality, we are talking about standard in reality. Okay. The moment we use this word quality, it becomes a matter of perception. Okay. Now, service providers actually set the standard, and they set the standard depending on the mission of the organization. If the mission of the organization to be service oriented, if the mission of the organization to set a service norm or standard as per the highest, then obviously service is a very utmost requirement, good quality service at any cost. But if the company is having a mission wherein it only wants to deliver service to the masses, then little bit I am saying, not to a very great extent, here and there will be fine, as far as the company is able to maintain its customer base. Okay. So, it depends a lot on the mission of the company. Now, for achieving the standard which the company has set, the company should design the appropriate service policy. Service policy will include, and then after that service procedure also. So, service policy may include that in how many minutes or how many hours or how many working days the salesperson will reply to a new query, and through which means of communication. Okay. And this is what is service policy. So, this has to be set by the company. So, these policies are developed by the management, because company is a new one, they do not have any previous experience. So, they develop policy. But then after what happened, when the service team actually start providing them services, then they start getting certain experiences, and they also get to know that what are the preferences on their tourists. So, on the basis of the preferences of the tourist as well as the experiences which they have gained after the delivery of service, they may do amendment in their policies. Okay. So, services are designed by the service team. Okay. The policies for services are designed by the service team, and then on the basis of experience and preferences are amended in future. Now, we have to understand here this thing, that service standards are dynamic. I told you in the previous previous slide itself that what is expected today will become essential. So, if what is expected today will become essential tomorrow, then it clearly means that service standard also has to be dynamic. It has to keep on raising the bar or standard as per the changing taste and preferences of the tourist. Okay. Now, service policies are only as good as the personnel perform. Okay. It is not about the policy, it is not about the standard, it is simply about how well your employee has actually performed. Okay? And on the basis of that only the service policies, whether successful or not successful, will be decided. So, whenever the company is coming up with a new policy or coming up with a new procedure of delivery of the services, then in that condition the company must train its employees, so that this actual performance of the employee goes in line with the policy of the company. So, first comes service plan, then there is to be completely written procedure in which the services will be delivered. Then after that training, you need to motivate your employees. Best employer of the month, best service provider of the month, best customer family employee of the month, of the week, so of this weekend. So, all these things these things motivate employee because they get recognized for their good efforts. So, this is what is required. So, set the standard, give the delivery as per preferences and experiences, make the amendment. Every time you make any amendment or set a policy, you need to give training to your employees, and then after this training you need to continue motivating your employee, and this is how service standards are being set and delivered by the company. Now, next is perceived service performance. I told you the gap between customer expectation and service standard is called service performance or perceived service performance. Okay? Now, as per Parsuraman, Zithamal and Berry, they have given this definition in 1994, the variation between guest expectations and actual service performed, that is called perceived service performance. So, here we have to remember this thing, this is gap. This is nowhere saying whether it will be better or it will be worse. So, if it going to be better, then in that condition the satisfaction level of the tourist will be higher. But if this gap is towards the lower side, negative side, then dissatisfaction will be higher. So, this is just about gap, not about positive or negative, and it can go on any side, higher, satisfied, lower, not satisfied. How much higher will decide level of satisfaction, how much worse will decide about the dissatisfaction. Okay? Now, as I told you in the previous slide itself, that tourist expectations are different. So, actual quality may remain the same, actual standard of service may remain the same, but how tourists are actually perceiving that quality, that will make a difference, and that is why similar quality, similar standard may be perceived differently by different tourists. So, this is only a perception of service quality. Okay? This is not the real. Real was service standard. Okay? But then it is the service quality which determines the satisfaction and not the service standard. Perceived service performance is actually quality of service. Okay? Now, what is customer delight? When the tourist says that the services are exceptional, beyond his expectations, much beyond his expectations, then it becomes a exceptional service. Okay? That is called customer delight. And when he receives services surpassing his expectations, and you must know this thing, that only a delighted customer becomes your warm advocate. Okay? Word of mouth or word of mouse advocate. Okay? Now, next is happy customer. Happy customer when actually only adequate services are provided. So, he was expecting and his expectations were sufficiently met. So, he is happy with it, okay, just satisfied, but not delighted. Delighted is beyond what is expected. Okay. Now, dissatisfied customer, this is a red signal, let me tell you this thing. Performance is below the expectations, must not be done, must be avoided by service providers at any cost. Okay. Now, I mean the way in which I have taught you just now, you must be thinking it is red signal and it is very risky. No, it's very true, it is risky, but at the same time it is an opportunity also for the improvement. So, this provides an opportunity for the improvement for the company to find out the lacuna okay, and then work on it and do the improvement. And let me tell you a very good finding of a research which says that even a dissatisfied customer, if his dissatisfaction and reason for that gets addressed and he gets proper satisfaction or proper okay kind of a feeling, yes, I can understand my dissatisfaction and the reason for that has been addressed, and I accept your whatever corrective measures the company has taken, then the chances of coming back of this previously dissatisfied customer is very high. So, the company must not avoid to get in touch with this dissatisfied customer, because even this previously dissatisfied customer, if his problem has been addressed and sorted out, will come back, and his chances of coming back is higher than a satisfied customer. Okay, because he gets an impression that company is seriously interested in the satisfaction level of the tourist. Okay. Now, as per 1998 American Express Travel Index, 14% of dissatisfied tourists do nothing. Okay, they simply do not do anything. They just are dissatisfied. They keep shut, but they will come back. No, they will not come back. Okay, and out of those 14%, 4% will never return. So, 4% is that market which the company loses if the company does not do this first point which I have told you, that it is an opportunity for improvement. So, this 4% can be stopped and can be converted to a loyal customer only if the company addresses their problem. Okay. Now, Technical Assistance Research Corporation, they did a research which says that, please listen to me very carefully, it is a very important point. A satisfied customer tells to on an average 4 to 5 people. Okay. So, he is your warm advocate only for 4 to 5 people, but a dissatisfied customer tells to 9 to 10 people. So, when we talk about this word of mouth negativity here spreads more rapidly, and that is what companies must always try to avoid. With this, I am stopping this lecture here. At the end of it, I have given you a list of 5 books. You can refer to any of these books or any other books or book of your choice or availability. Thank you.